Hello and welcome again to another episode of the Bitcoin News Show. I am your host, Vortex, and you guys are right here on the World Crypto Network YouTube channel, one of the best places to find news and information about cryptocurrency. We got a great show for you guys today. We were supposed to have a special guest, but he couldn't make it, so we're still going to have an even greater show because we got topics, people. We got topics, and we got amazing panelists. It's going to be an amazing show. So first, before we introduce the panelists and the guests, let me just make a quick announcement. I just wanted to thank everybody for who took me up on my consulting offer, who wanted to have a one-on-one. I've had a great time explaining Bitcoin to you, explaining how to use a Trezor, explaining all this stuff to you guys. It's really great to have an intimate one-on-one conversation because we try to put out as much information as possible with all these videos and stuff. But, you know, to be able to have an intimate one-on-one with somebody is really great and satisfying. So thank you guys for taking me up on that. And without further ado, I think we can get right into the topics. All sorts of stuff going on with Bitcoin as usual. There's so much drama. Everybody loves it. This is probably one of the best soap operas I've ever seen in my life. And so I think that the movie is going well. So let's see here, guys. The first topic we got, the Bitcoin price. Yes, the Bitcoin price. I mean, holy crap, what is it right now? It was like over, it got up to 1,600 at one point. It's still over 1,500, like 1,543 right now on Bitstamp. Absolutely amazing. I think everybody is basically, we got Bitcoin being on another tear, taking the world by storm with its recent price rise, breaking all new all-time highs, passing up gold yet again. So I want to ask everybody, like, what do we think is causing this, and, you know, how long can it last? And really, if anybody holds Bitcoin on this panelist, which I think some of us do, well, what does it make you feel like? Does it feel good to be a part of something like this, or what does it make you feel? I want to know. I want the audience to know. So first, let's go with Edward. I didn't even introduce anybody yet. Maybe I should do that first. So Edward, Renegade Investor, joining us. Actually, we have a new person joining us who hasn't actually joined us before. And so I'm really excited to have him on the show. Michael Tidwell. How you doing, Michael?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Thanks so much for joining, man. I know you've been educating people with conferences. I know you've been talking, you're talking about the community about Bitcoin. If it wasn't, you know, for people like you and for people like myself and other people and educators, there's so many good content creators, you know, people wouldn't know about Bitcoin. So this is really important, and I'm really proud to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us, man. Ansel, we have Ansel back on the show from bitcoinandmarkets.com. Yes, Bitcoin and Markets, where he talks about both Bitcoin and the markets. I know it's a little self-explanatory. Ansel, thank you for joining us. How you doing?
Doing great. Happy to be here finally.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Yeah, it's been a little while. We're really glad to have you back on the show. But let me ask Edward first. Edward, on this price rise, what do you think's causing it, man? Are you happy about this? What do you think? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm happy about it. I think it's amazing. Like, to be honest, it almost feels surreal. Like, I'm not at the euphoric stage yet. I feel like we haven't really, although we've sort of increased the market cap by double, we still haven't hit the euphoric stage, which I would associate with a major parabolic bull run. But it feels great, and it is almost surreal because we kind of envisaged this for all the time we've been in Bitcoin, all the time through the hard times, through 2014, 2015, envisioning where it could be. And when you see it going there through all the hard work that everybody does in the community, from infrastructures, exchanges, miners, developers, commentators, and analysts, everybody, that is so well deserved because there's so much passion, there's so much drive in this community. And everybody has worked so hard for it. So everyone needs to give themselves a massive pat on the back at the work that everybody is doing worldwide to make this a success. You know, it's one massive global project. But yeah, what do I think of what's driving this? I'm going to keep referring to this, but I did a video at the beginning of the year called 10 Reasons Why Bitcoin Will Destroy All-Time Highs this year. And I think it's going to be something that I'm going to keep returning to throughout the year. But everything I put in that video, we're really beginning to see. Like, one of the biggest reasons was the war on cash. And we recently saw India say they're going to ban cash in 75 cities in India. And you can be sure that every other government is going to be watching this very closely to see if they can do similar things in other countries. You've also got institutional investment. I saw Brian Kelly on CNBC in an article on CNBC the other day talking about how a lot more sort of institutional investors are paying attention. And I know Chris from Mark Investment has also been talking to a lot of institutionals who are getting interested. And one thing to understand about Bitcoin is the more the more value and liquidity goes into Bitcoin, the bigger the investors are going to get involved. It's like buying begets buying. The more liquid, the more people get involved because it can soak up and actually absorb the capital that these people want to put in. At the same time, recently we've seen massive smashes in gold and silver. As you know, gold and silver, precious metals, were actually rising to a critical point where if they broke out of the weekly downtrend resistance line, they would have been absolutely pumping. And what did we see again? Like 3 billion notional in gold contract sales at the most illiquid time in the markets, which no rational investor would do. So I really think another reason, which I put in my video at the beginning of the year, was the gold and silver manipulation, which I believe is still ongoing. And I think, you imagine, it's frustrating enough as a gold and silver holder myself to see it getting smashed when I'm holding Bitcoin. But you imagine what it's like for these people when they've been holding gold and silver throughout the Bitcoin bull run and they haven't diversified. So I really think that it's going to really get to Bitcoin and silver gold holders very soon. And like I said, 1% of capital goes from the precious metal market into Bitcoin. You're looking at $85 billion. And that would take the Bitcoin price right now up to about 8,000 a coin. So all of these things are adding up. And there's just so many other things. Like I obviously don't want to go on too long here, but there's just so many things. Like we've lost the risk of the hard fork, I believe. Japanese volume is huge. I wrote that at the beginning of the year. Not only that, they've dropped the 8% consumption tax, and you've also got the political reasons. And one that I really want to bring up was Obama's $400,000 Wall Street speeches. He literally spent the best part of his administration protecting Wall Street criminals, especially those from HSBC who laundered $800 million in drug money for Sinaloa cartels in Mexico. None of them got convicted, even though it's completely brazen fraud. Like one of the worst things that banks can do. And what does he do? He walks straight out, gets his payday for his administration protecting them. And I think more and more people are beginning to see this, and they're looking at this crony capitalism, thinking, people are really waking up. And I know that's a really commonly used phrase, and everybody's been wondering when it's going to happen, but it's happening in droves now, and people are really fed up with this. And in terms of how long it can last, to finish on, like at the moment, we're hitting two sort of key technical resistance points. So on the logarithmic scale on the Bitcoin chart, we're hitting the top of the logarithmic sort of trend channel we've been in since August 2015, at around sort of 1800. And at this point, we've also hit a technical resistance, the 1.618 Fibonacci extension. So we are at short-term resistance now. So we could see a pullback, but even so, like we haven't seen a volume that I would associate with the end of a parabolic bull run. So I still think there's some major upside. And especially one sort of last thing to end on here is if you look at the altcoin market, it took me by surprise that there's actually now over $15 billion in altcoins. And one thing you will see at the end of every altcoin run is that money being put back, will be cashed out back into Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin's sitting at around a $25 billion market cap, if you get sort of a 70-80% of that money flowing back into Bitcoin, we could easily get pushed into the sort of 2000s. Definitely this year. Like we definitely haven't seen the highs of the year. And not only that, I think there's so much grassroots. I mean, I was at the Bitcoin meetup in Bristol the other day that I co-host, and we had like almost double the people. There's literally people contacting me all the time now who've got my information. They're saying, I want to invest, my husband wants to invest, my friends want to invest, and I get called by their friends. And I really think there's some huge grassroots explosion coming here. And this is the sort of thing that will take us onto that S-curve adoption, because once those people are on there making money, their friends want it, and that's when you get the network effect. And I really think that any sort of downside risk is being offset by this humongous groundswell of new people coming into the market. I mean, anecdotally, that's what I'm seeing. And not only that, like you got to remember, and this is the one thing that I sort of fall back on all the time when Bitcoin bubble starts getting thrown around, is that there's $365 trillion in all other major asset classes. Bitcoin is still at 25 billion. So in terms of how far it has to go, it could be huge. I mean, yeah, we're going to see pullbacks along the way, but as far as I can see, there is still a lot of upside potential this year.
Awesome. That is great to hear. And we always love to hear your commentary on the markets. You just definitely lay out a very clear vision of what's happening right now with the world economy. And there's all sorts of problems. And, we got, Brexit, people are flocking to are flocking to Bitcoin, and what is going to be the best store of value, I think, that we've ever seen. So before we go on, let's introduce a couple of people that have joined us in the midstream here. So we have Diego, the special guest. Thank you so much, Diego. So glad to have you on here, man. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate you coming on the show. we're going to interview you in the second half. We got some questions to ask you. The first half, we're going to continue with the topics here, and then we're going to get into more detailed questions about RSK and all that good stuff. So first, let's go with you, Diego. Let me ask you this question. We got the Bitcoin price. You know, I mean, it's going on a tear right now. People are loving it. What do you think is causing this Bitcoin price? And is it sustainable? Have we seen the highs for the year? What do you think?
Well, it looks like it's mostly related to Japan activity, and I read a couple articles saying that it also has to do with institutional involvement. My point of view, I always do different analysis of what the Bitcoin price might be based on adoption. And you know, if only 5% of the money that is stored in gold were to move into Bitcoin, then you would have a Bitcoin that is $20,000 more than now. So for me, it's not surprising, and you know, it's related more to awareness of different and trust in Bitcoin than anything else. So as more institutional investors and more people get exposure to Bitcoin or know about the properties or feel more trust in it, we will see the price rising, and this is clearly not the limit. Till when those events of knowledge or realization of the potential of Bitcoin will happen.
Yep, absolutely. I think a lot of us would agree with that as well. Joining us also today, ladies and gentlemen, we got Andrew DeSantis. Thanks so much for joining us. How you doing, man?
Doing good. How have you been?
Awesome. Really good. Really glad to have you back on the show. It's been a little while for you as well, both you and Ansel. It's been a while since you guys have been on the show, and we got a newcomer, Michael Tidwell. So really glad to have all you guys on the show. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming. We got tons of great panelists here, so this is going to be an interesting conversation. So Andrew, tell me, what do you think about this Bitcoin price, man, and what's going on with it? Is it sustainable? Have we seen the highs for this year, or what's going on?
I honestly have no idea. I have not. I haven't really watched it. Like, I mean, I used to watch Bitcoinity when I was coding. I'd have it on the TV at the top, but like it got hot, like in here when I was running a bunch of monitors, so it just hadn't been on. It was interesting because I was ordering BIOS chips the other day, like new flash chips, and the price was up like 300 from the last time that I cashed any out to buy anything. So I mean, it's up. That's what we expected it to do. I mean, I don't see any reason for it to go down, because at this point, everyone's understanding of what Bitcoin is as a structure and as a network and as a protocol, that's pretty well understood. So the price that it's at now, I don't see it going lower, because there was a lot of confusion whenever, you know, Mt. Gox got hacked. Like back in 2013, if you were to ask me about Bitcoin, I'd fumble over a bunch of words, and like 20 minutes later, you would have some idea of something that kind of resembles what Bitcoin actually is. And we're not like there anymore. I mean, I get hounded by people that know so much about Bitcoin, and they've been here for such a short amount of time. So like the learning curve is basically gone. So I think, you know, what's about to start happening is we're going to have the price go up as more people bring new ideas into the Bitcoin space and like really start building them out from this understanding of Bitcoin itself.
Awesome. So it seems like we are entering a new era in Bitcoin then, you know, another place on the curve. So let me ask Ansel, Bitcoin and markets, man, you got to give us some interesting answers here. Why have we entered this new era of Bitcoin now? What's going on?
Well, Edward hit it out of the park. I think he covered most of the bases that I had. I was getting a little bit worried when the price was getting to 1650. I thought, you know, this could take off and we could see, you know, like a $400 day or something. And that would be bad, because it eventually would be a blow off top and come back down. So I'm really happy to see that we pulled back, you know, $100 since then. And over the last couple of days, we've been very solid and consolidating. So I think that's healthy for any short-term push up will have a base at this level right here. I think the price over the last year has been suppressed. We might have seen these levels 6 months ago or something like that if we wouldn't have had the all the FUD from the scaling, and other people have come out and spread a lot of FUD. We're seeing the halvening kick in and break through that FUD. People are really understanding the use case of Bitcoin right now, which I believe is store of value, not buying a coffee, but store of value. And there's been a lot of education that's happened over the last 2 years. During the scaling debate, people understand Bitcoin. Like in the 2000 people that came in the 2013 bubble, over the last 2 years, they've learned a ton. And I think that's helping us break through this FUD and get the market to go up where it should be.
It does feel like we're further along down the time space continuum here. We're further along in Bitcoin. It's now over 8 years old to the mainstream until 2013, but that's been years now, and so it does feel like what the panelists are echoing to me is that the people are figuring out about Bitcoin. The world is finding out about Bitcoin, and it's also evident with some of the some of the crazier YouTube videos that we've been seeing from some people lately about all your regular teenagers are now beginning to get into crypto. So it's interesting stuff. We've seen stuff like Crypto Girl.
That's always been the case, by the way. When blockchain.info had 3 employees, one of the guys that was there, well, not 3 employees, but like 3 main guys, he told me that a good percentage of their wallets were from people in high school. And I always thought that was fascinating because it meant that there was this hidden part of Bitcoin that we didn't really know about because they didn't know how to talk like on Twitter or on Reddit or something like that. So they've always been here. And
Good point.
Yeah.
I think that's true. It's probably they always have been here, but I think we're now seeing even more mainstream people that perhaps haven't even ever heard of Bitcoin until this year, and so that's really great. And then of course you go even further along, and then we'll have people growing up with Bitcoin, right? And that's going to be really great stuff because it's really going to be fun trying to teach that generation of people about standard traditional 9-to-5 banking rules. They're just not going to
they're not going to keep a ledger.
Yeah, no, it's going to be like trying to teach kids today about fax machines. It's not going to work out so well. So finally, we got Mr. Michael Tidwell. Oh, sorry, Diego. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I just wanted to be a little bit controversial or contrarian, but I think we are far from mass adoption, and what we are seeing is still early adoption. I mean, if you ask people in the street, even maybe they hear about the currency mostly because they don't really understand in general the technology. But if you ask, is maybe 1 in 100. Is the ratio of knowledge, and to get into mass adoption, we need to at least cross the 15-20%. So even if I love what is happening and I love all the movement and the excitement now, I think we are a long way to go. But of course, each one of these push in the right direction is very exciting. I love it, and I've seen it in 2013, 2012 when we passed from 1020 to 200, and then when we passed from 100 and something into 1000. So it's like this excitement, but as I always say, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So we should be prepared for the long run.
I mean, I think it's recursive in nature, and this is just a compounding effect of all the work that's been put in. Like, I'm not getting on planes and going and partying, or I'm not going to a single conference this year, and I don't
Where's
plan
your
on
Lamborghini?
it.
Where's your
So
Lamborghini?
But I mean, like, the thing about it is it's just like, who's bringing these billions of dollars in? I don't know who they are. I don't know why they're here, but I know that I have code that I'm writing that I planned on writing in the event that I was right about them being here at this point in time. And
Yep,
me and a
that's
lot
an
of people,
interesting part. Sorry, go ahead.
thought not just about, what that collision would look like right now. We thought that all the way through to the very end. And so it is, while it's interesting that the price is up, and while it might seem like things are really great, I kind of just see the gears turning. I mean, it's Bitcoin works.
Yes.
Once you accept that and you start building, you can do a lot of weird shit.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Andrew.
Absolutely.
We are starting to see the light. A little bit of the matrix is appearing before our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the matrix, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it is. So Michael, sorry to bring you last there, Michael. Somebody's always got to go last, but Michael, perhaps you can share your insight.
Sure. So
talking to a lot of people, but go ahead, Michael, please.
So so first off, I feel I feel kind of awkward to even pump Bitcoin, as far as telling people hey, it's going up, the prices, something to look at. I try not to look at the price. I used to all the time back in 2013, 14, but I've slowly have gotten away from it, and it's made me happier. I kind of subscribe to this idea that this guy named Mike B. Casey came up with. A shameless plug, we do a Block Time podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes. But essentially, he came up with a Bitcoin price adoption theory that's seems to be pretty accurate if you want to read the Medium post. But we're in this phase that he's coined called the volatilic rise, and essentially, we're almost at the knee of a exponential curve as far as price goes. But with that being said, that could still be a long time before that happens. And I would also like to say that even with the price of Bitcoin going up, the fact that these altcoins have also pumped, and I would say a lot of scams have been pumping, has not really been as exciting for Bitcoin. So it's actually not very exciting to me because you see all these altcoins and scams pumping like crazy. So the fact that that's happening, and I also trying.
That's always happening, though. That's happening at all times.
So this
every
is
day.
never happening. No, this hasn't ever happened like this. This is, if you look at the Bitcoin dominance on coin market cap, this is the first time that it's gotten near 50%.
Yeah, in terms of market cap,
total market cap. Whether you want to go off market cap as a viable
but Bitcoin's at 25 billion. Bitcoin's up, the other ones are up. It's planets and moons.
That's not really the point of arguing. The fact that Bitcoin isn't really dominant, 80+%, 90+%, makes it where when the price goes up like this, and then you see sick gains and these other, scams and altcoins, it's
anytime there's uncertainty though in Bitcoin, it gets volatile. And anytime it gets volatile, people start trading, and trading's an addictive thing that people keep doing. So the fact that the price is up the fact that the price is veered towards altcoins has to do with the fact that Bitcoin has uncertainty in it. It's not that Bitcoin doesn't work, it's just that it's a volatile period in time.
Okay, so I would say the reason altcoins are mainly pumping so hard is because everyone just wants to get rich, mainly. They're putting money into altcoins. Like traders, gambling, addiction, sure. That's the main use case for Ethereum. Is to to get in and get out before other people get out.
Well, let's let Michael finish.
And and another thing, I don't really like to necessarily I want the Bitcoin price to go up, but because of utility. I really like the idea of for instance, Segwit and payment channels, Lightning Network. That's what I really think. What I want to make talked about earlier, that exponential curve that goes up. I want it to be because of utility and not just pure speculation. So that's at least my little thoughts on price right now. So not as exciting to me, but still awesome.
It's interesting. Yeah, Michael, it's interesting you mentioned utility because, for me, the main utility, of course, is a censorship-resistant, store of value, decentralized censorship-resistant store of value. So, for me, that's the utility that's bringing people to Bitcoin, I think. People are looking at it, right, as they're putting all this money into it, and they're looking at it as a store of value, right? That's the utility.
Yeah, we so I have a couple presentations where I talk about main use cases of Bitcoin and why I personally use Bitcoin. And interestingly enough, we have a guy on BitPay that frequents our podcast named Chris Clichold. He's under the impression that one of these main use cases now is for companies to hold a little bit for ransomware situations. So he's pretty confident that a lot of Fortune 500s, a lot of companies are actually have a little stash, which I don't know if it's true. And, even if you do work for those companies, you probably wouldn't be privy to that information. But I thought that was interesting.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, this is some interesting discussion. If does anybody else have anything else they want to add for this topic? Bitcoin price.
Market cap of altcoins. If $1 billion goes into the market altcoins, I mean, it can rise the market cap of altcoins by 10 billion. Right? There's just because the market cap goes up that high doesn't mean there's a lot of money going in there. Bitcoin is got a lot more money. It's something like $3 million a day just to keep the price steady for Bitcoin. So
and
there is a lot more money going into Bitcoin than these altcoins. It just is all fluff. That's it.
Recently, some people in the community have proposed a little bit better idea to try to measure these coins than just market cap. So we'll see it. We'll see if that can actually happen and look, so we can have some better insight into the actual value of these coins. Because market cap, I think alone is just people aren't happy with just the market cap alone. So we'll see how that goes. Before we go,
one last point.
Go ahead, please, Edward.
The one big change that I've seen recently from the past sort of 2 years is that the Bitcoin price has really been set on the edge by the margin speculators for the last 2 years. And the first time this sort of ended, which I saw recently, was when we were sort of pushing all-time highs. And at that point, when we were sort of hitting 2013 highs, there was literally a record short position, I think, on Finex. Literally, more people were shorting the market than ever. And because there was so much grassroots adoption coming in from sort of people who've never invested in Bitcoin before, the price literally didn't drop. And this is from also institutional investors who are trying to top up their accounts as well on the exchanges. And there was a record short position that literally did not drop the price. And that is why we saw it power through all-time highs, because all those speculators then had to cover their shorts, which caused a massive short covering rally. And what I'm looking for now is this. Like, at the moment, we're at a level where a lot of the sort of established original gangster traders are going to be sort of taking shorts against the market because we're at two sort of significant technical resistance levels. So what I'm looking for is whether the sort of institutional buying and these sort of new buyers coming into the market is going to offset any type of short position. And if that happens, then we could see another big rally if we don't see a drop off and we see some really strong consolidation. So that's the sort of thing I'm looking for right now. And if you, as one thing I'll end on as well, like, if you're watching this and you're thinking of buying for the first time, like, just, I don't give financial advice. This is just what I would do. But then just chuck everything at once, say 1550, just scale in, put in a little bit, see what the price does. If you get a $300-400 pullback, put some more in, just be sensible with how you enter the market. Don't just go all in, YOLO trade that thing, like.
Yep. Do not sell your house for Bitcoin, people. Although somebody did sell their house for Litecoin a couple years back, and I think they're doing okay. But still, no financial advice on this show. This is just enthusiasts having a fireside chat about Bitcoin. So thanks, everybody, so much for joining us. We have over 200 viewers here right now. So please hit that like button, as Mr. Adam Meister says, pound that like button, please, ladies and gentlemen. If you can, hit the thumbs up. If you like us, hit the thumbs down. If you don't like us, and we really appreciate you guys if you could subscribe to the World Crypto Network. We have a lot of shows on this network, and we love to talk about Bitcoin. So there's a lot of news, a lot of people, and I have a lot of people on this show. So you never know what you're going to get when you come here. We have lots of stuff. So thanks so much, guys, for joining us. We're going to move on to the next topic here. That's him. That's right. He's back. Craig Wright in the news. The scammer and fraudster Craig Wright recently attempted to step back into the public eye with the announcement of his new company, NChain, which claims to be a actual competitor to the Bitcoin Core implementation, with people like Jon Matonis, Gavin, Andresen, Jeff Garzik, all saying it's a good idea. What do we think about it? What do you think is this? Is this the future, ladies and gentlemen? Are we going to be buying NChain coins? What's happening? First, of course, we'll go with our special guest, Diego. Diego, what do you think about this? What is this NChain thing? Why are people liking it?
Well, I don't have a clue. So basically, you know, I've been following the NChain process of creation. I think, you know, they create. It looks like they created a lot of around their projects on purpose. It's like, you know, they were saying, well, we bought like I don't know how many tens or hundreds of patents from Bitcoin, from Craig. So it's, I mean, it looks, usually when you have a project and you are honest, you are much more frontal. You don't need, in this space, you don't need to be creating, you know, any kind of mysterious mystery around your project. So for me, that's very suspicious. It's like when the pyramidal schemes tell profit over week, but I'm not telling you how. So it's I don't know. It's for me, I don't like it in terms of how they work or how they manage the communications. So I cannot say I don't know the internals, but you know, I look for patterns, and the patterns I see I don't like.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Let's see here. Let's go with Andrew next. Mr. Andrew DeSantis. What is your opinion on NChain? And you know, does the credibility of these guys add anything to this project? What do you think?
I haven't looked it up yet. Somebody sent me something about it the other day, but I didn't really look it up. But Craig Wright in general, I'm like jealous of the dude. The dude had like this really wicked sick computer in Australia, and I know some people in New Zealand that do this company called Nyriad. It's like NYRIAD. I was looking at some of their stuff. They sent me a link a while back, and I recently, since seeing that video, just started trying to enumerate every company in Australia, New Zealand doing Bitcoin, and they're doing some really freaking weird and good stuff. So like Craig Wright, I don't think he's Satoshi or anything like that, but I would be interested in seeing whatever he builds, because they have a bunch of computer stuff down there, like equipment, you know, infrastructure. If I could build on some of the stuff they have, I'd be building some weird things. So
There was interesting. Well, there was an article, you know, that said they on CoinDesk, I believe, that said they had 60 people working for them. So we'll see.
yeah, they have big numbers. The guy I talked to had like 150 guys working for him.
Interesting. All right. Next, we'll go with Ansel. Ansel, what do you think about NChain? And is this the future of Bitcoin? What is this thing?
Well, NChain is a competitor to Core, right? It's the next Bitcoin Unlimited is what they're trying to do. I like what Diego was saying, is there's mystery around it. It seemed kind of off, and that's because it was marketed like an ICO, right? We've seen this time and time again. It was marketed exactly like an ICO. It's just another scam. It's getting worse and worse each time. So I think with XT, you know, there was actually some, Mike Hearn and Gavin were there. There was some sort of clout to that project, but each time, each progression now, we're getting less and less actual tech and more money. Now, NChain has raised, what, $100 million? So it's just a big marketing campaign, and who knows why. Maybe they're trying to keep the price down. Maybe, you know, Roger's trying to buy more coins cheap. I don't know.
They raised $100 million?
Yeah.
Damn.
Was that on the CoinDesk article, or is that a different article?
It was, I think, from a Whale Panda blog post.
Yeah, I do link to the Whale Panda blog post about NChain below in the video description. So if you guys want to check that out, I do recommend that article.
I saw it somewhere. They reported that they had raised 300 million. That was like a month ago. And then when they actually did have the big press release and stuff, it was 100 million. So I don't know what happened. Kind of similar to R3. But
Interesting.
I'm not really as worried about the debate anymore. Like, I'm not as stressed about like NChain existing or anything like that. So I was like looking back at the whole increase the block size thing, and if 4 megabytes, 4 minutes is the propagation time on average that we're inferring for sending Bitcoin all around the world. If we can cut that in half, then there's no reason that we can't double the actual block size variable. And if it's one of those things where Segwit can't be activated because of that, I think it's going to work itself out. I think that if we can identify the problem, we can actually come up with a solution. Like CDMA as a phone protocol that exists, that splits messages across multiple channels, and it makes things that weren't supposed to be possible. So I'm not really that worried about Bitcoin. I think that eventually it's going to have to go into the ionosphere with radios if it wants to maintain decentralization. And I think this might be a good reason why one might do it.
Yeah, and I think that, just to be clear, I think that every single person who supports Segwit does want larger block size at one point. I mean, I definitely think that that's the case. At some point, we want larger, but of course, to maintain the decentralization, we got to keep that the first layer, as accessible as possible, and do all of our crazy, amazing instant transaction stuff, on layers above that. But that gets into the block size debate, and we don't want to get into that so much right now. So next we'll go with Michael Tidwell. What do you think about this NChain and Craig Wright? What's going on?
Don't know too much about NChain. I think I read a CoinDesk article or something a while back, but I honestly don't know much about it. As far as Craig Wright is concerned, I feel like it's general sentiment that he's a fraudster, not Satoshi, which was just really weird. So obviously anything affiliated with him is red flags to me, but that's true or not, I have no clue. I don't know if he's actually doing good stuff with NChain. Can't comment on that. But yeah, and it did seem like NChain. So I was looking it up just a little bit right now. It seems like same from the sentiment of, hey, there's 1 megabyte blocks right now. We need some kind of way of determining the best ways to change that if we want to change that. So it looks like that's what's fueling that project. But
Yep. And as somebody, pointed out in the chat, I definitely don't think that NChain is a good idea, but I mostly through my Twitter sphere, through on my Twitter account, I let you guys, the much more experts than me, talk first. So I think last, what we got here? Who was the last person? I think we got Edward. It's hard keeping track of all my guests here. Sorry about that. Let's go with Edward next. What do you think? NChain. So far, nobody in the panel really knows a whole great deal about it. It seems that it's a relatively new thing, and it really seems that nobody seems to really care about it too much. So, what do you think, Edward?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same, to be honest. Like, I was away on holiday last week, so I was I know it all broke last week as well, so I wasn't really privy to it that much. But from what I've sort of understood, like the first time I heard of Craig Wright was obviously when he was in Australia, and then as soon as the Australian government found out he could be Satoshi, they trumped up some tax avoidance claims on him and kicked his door in. And I thought that was funny because it just shows as soon as the government sniffs money, they just kick your front door in. But going on to NChain, I'm like the others. I don't think it's a risk to Bitcoin. There's two reasons for that. And one, you just simply can't get past the fact that Core has the best developers in the world. And what's going to make them switch over to NChain or anything like that? How many experts can you get to compete with the Bitcoin Core team? And not only that, can they catch up with the sheer amount of sort of coding that has been done by the Core team, which I know is absolutely colossal. I think they've done something like 50,000 more lines than BU or something like that, or 50,000 commits. So you've got to ask yourself, are they going to be able to pick up that void, which I don't think so. The other way I've been thinking about this, and no, I don't think anyone sort of covered. Actually, the other thing I was going to say is I actually read Whale Panda's article as well, and he pointed out one thing which is quite interesting because I used to work for an intellectual property firm, and he pointed out that in I think it was on the NChain website, they had a lot of references to patenting, so it could be that NChain is being created as a way to do some patent trolling or something like that. The other way I'm looking at this now is that you've had BU and now we've got NChain, and the way I see it, this, I actually watched a video by Mike Cernovich the other day on being a slave to status. And this might sound really sort of off the left field, but he's talking about how subconsciously humans can be sort of a slave to status and how we're always looking for anything in our lives that can sort of give us a better status in order to do all sorts of things, to make more money, to meet females or whatever. And I started applying this to what's going on in Bitcoin. And one thing I noticed is that all the people creating sort of Bitcoin core competing implementations have already maxed out their kind of their money, you know, like I think Craig Wright, I think when his sort of reported net worth was in the hundreds of millions, you know, and there's you've also got sort of there who's in the hundreds of millions. And so the next sort of status symbol is like, I think to have a competing Bitcoin core implementation, it's like the ultimate Bitcoin status symbol right now. So it could be something like that, honestly. Like I wouldn't outright that. I think it's always good to look at like what sort of core principles we have as humans and what drives us. And it could be that, you know, once you've got so much money, what's the next goal for you? And I think, honestly, having these like competing implementations is like the new status symbol for like Bitcoiners. It's just one of my theories.
That is an interesting theory for sure.
Honestly, I just thought, you know, why not? Like, we're all humans. Like, that could be it. I don't know.
Because there's not everybody is going to agree on everything all the time, right? So it makes sense, of course, that there's going to be, and it's just that unfortunately, you know, Bitcoin Unlimited was the only one that was actually trying to be Bitcoin, trying to be Bitcoin.com, trying to actually be Bitcoin, you know, itself. So that's interesting.
I would I'll sell you my Twitter account, all my social media assets, all my Bitcoin domains, and never speak about Bitcoin again. If you give me a specific number of Bitcoin, I'll never come back. I don't need a status symbol thing. Status symbol in Bitcoin is terrible because it makes you a huge target. Yep. So if that's the thing that people are trying to do, thinking not with their head, it's gonna get them hurt, because it's not like a fun thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. So I mean, you know, it's really difficult to compete with like everybody has said here, pretty much the most talented people on the planet. And this is the rock stars that are working on Bitcoin.
I mean, the people that found the ant bleed or whatever the other day, do you realize if they, let's say the DNSSEC wasn't set for the domain that had that backdoor, they could have ransomware, say 70% of all the miners out there, and they chose not to do it because the incentives didn't align for them to do it. The fact that they revealed it and did not do an attack, that's like high stakes poker. And
absolutely,
if someone's trying to jump into that and there's like two dogs fighting, you're gonna get bit. And I definitely would say it's a lot different than I think it would appear.
It's high stakes, and the stakes are only getting higher at this point. With every day that passes, the stakes get higher. Go ahead, Diego.
Yes, no, that I don't know, maybe it's my place, but I'll be the devil's advocate once more.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I think, you know, even though I'm positive that Core has the most knowledge in the space, I think and the more talented programmers, so it's an amazing team. But I think that having multiple implementations compatible and that have compatible on the consensus level, it's very important for the evolution of Bitcoin, and that eventually we should separate the discussion between implementations and protocol. Much like you have in the internet, you have the IETF, you know, the Internet Engineering Task Force. I like to see these efforts, and from NChain, what I liked from what Jon Matonis said was that not as an opposition to Core, because I think we have enough you know, in-fight confrontation. I think we should shoot down that thing and go back to the spirit of the early days of Bitcoin, where we were trying to build together. But not in the sense of competition, but in the sense of that if we have a better, you know, process to discuss protocol improvements, like they were saying, and all these, even all this block size increase, to me is a little bit silly, in the sense that there are, it's not only the block, it's too many things. I mean, you can change the frequency, you can change how the consensus protocol work to avoid having orphan blocks. So there are many things you can play around to create scaling that are not necessarily tied to the block size. So block size is only one element. There have been studies that if you go beyond 4 megabytes in current you know, network conditions and and protocol, based on Satoshi's protocol as it is, then you will lead to centralization. And so we have, the conversation should be much more richer. And I think, I don't know, I like seeing other implementations. I would like to see a body emerging.
I love multiple implementations. I think it's great. I think we have to get to where we have multiple implementations of a lot more, though, than just the Bitcoin protocol client. Like, I'd like multiple implementations of my operating system's BIOS. I'd like multiple implementations of various minor BIOSes and stuff like that. Like, I want it to be full stack multiple implementations so that everything is clear.
If only the incentive was as clear as money, Andrew. People don't see, unfortunately, people don't see their operating systems and they don't see their BIOS, but they see their money. They see that every single day. So there's, that will probably, Bitcoin will get us there. Will get us to that.
We just got to build up BIOS out of money.
Yeah, exactly. See, that can be, and that's what I'm saying. That's what's gonna be crazy is when Bitcoin turns all sorts of different software that we used to think of as just software into money, because Bitcoin itself is software that is money. It's also going to eat up, like the internet eats things, right? It eats things, it turns it into software as a service. Bitcoin is going to eat all sorts of different things and turn it into money, and money as a service. So
self-reporting, self-tracking, self-improving. It's
crazy stuff. Sorry, I got off track a bit, but Michael,
no, you did.
Michael had something to say. Go ahead, Michael.
I just want to throw in for this topic, Jason Dreisner wrote a piece on a defensive consensus, which I would recommend you look up and check out after this. Of course, don't. And pretty much just go. He's big on kind of layering out the protocol and making changes that don't that won't destroy everything. The team versus like let's say NChain or whatever comes in and completely destructive or whatever. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying it's an interesting article that I would recommend everyone read up on. So that's all I really had.
Very interesting indeed. So yeah, this is very good stuff. I think we can move on to the next topic unless anybody has anything else to add to this.
One thing real quick. I think it's extremely interesting because the block size debate is the reason that we're actually talking about various implementations from various people around the world. Someone asked me the other day for advice on how to set up Bitcoin with their website, and they were asking me for a link to a GitHub repo for like a Bitcoin-based server. And I started asking them what they were doing, and I was like, dude, why don't you just list the public key on the page and just put it on a CDN? And this will have all the features you want. All the parts of Bitcoin that you want to add to your site will instantly be added. And he sat there and thought about it for a second, and he tried to complicate it a little bit. And then he goes, oh, crap. All I got to do is add the public keys to the page and make sure I don't screw up the SSL. And I've added Bitcoin, and it does all these things. I was like, you got it. Like, that's it right there. And for most people, that's where Bitcoin could end. And it could enable every single thing that you used to use PayPal for anyone in the world instantly. Yet we spend all of our time bickering over various software implementations that most people aren't going to run. Or if they are running it, they're running it in a very specific set of config files that they write once, it works, and they never see it again. And it's become a fascinating hobby of mine to just observe what's going on in real time.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what's really fascinating about Bitcoin. Like the internet, we can kind of observe everything happening together, as a species in real time. And so this is really fascinating stuff. I call it, the global renaissance, the global crypto renaissance, right? This is a global financial renaissance. So very, very interesting stuff. I think we can move on to the next topic. Before we do that, just want to say we got over 200 people, 212 people watching us right now. We got a bunch of people in the chat. We'd love having a conversation with you guys. Thanks so much for joining us. We got one more topic left to go, and then we're going to do the interview with Diego in the second half. So subscribe to the World Crypto Network channel. We just crossed over 10,000 recently, so we're really loving all the audience and all the feedback. We just love you guys. So please keep coming back and keep having a conversation with us. We love talking about Bitcoin, and I think we can move on to the third and final topic here. So let's go. Basically, and this, of course, topic involves our very own Andrew DeSantis is here, so he can comment on this. And so here we go. After a brief back and forth here on Twitter with Andrew DeSantis and Jihan Wu, Wu replied back saying that Bitmain may likely accept code that would stop ASIC boost. And I want to know from the panel, like, is this a sign of Bitcoin game theory at work, like forcing Jihan to finally realize what the market wants? And is this the next step possibly towards Jihan accepting Segwit? With Diego, and then we'll go with Andrew. Diego?
Yes. I think, yeah, I think, that's my outcome. Like, if, of course, I think every company responds to the market. Much like the politicians respond to their voters, those are their customers. So if you have an angry user base, then you will definitely switch, because that's the base of any business. I mean, you need to stay current. And I know ASIC Boost because also our chief scientist Sergio was one of the creators of before Bitmain took it and implemented it. So I was part of our conversations when we created RSK, because in RSK everything is open source. So that was part of the initial conversation with Sergio, what to do with that, and that's why at the end Timo Hanke was leading the project instead of Sergio, so we could keep because we were like getting a lot of questions about that. So we are pro open source, mostly because we think open competition is the way to go and to create a thriving ecosystem. It's not even like a political thing. What's the best? You mentioned evolutionary models. I think cryptocurrencies are that. They're more Darwinian. Is the best cryptocurrency will eventually dominate the others. Not necessarily eliminate the others, but very, very likely dominate the space. So in that sense, I think open source is good in the long term, because it make it more stronger and anti-fragile. I think I know Jihan. I talk to him seldomly, because Bitmain is an investor in RSK. So he never interfered with RSK, with our decision process in RSK. So to be fair, I don't see him like the evil guy that is trying to to kill Bitcoin or to, but of course he's concerned about certain things like everybody else. He's concerned about scaling, about what's the future potential of Bitcoin. Somebody was saying before that the Bitcoin potential is restricted if we don't have scaling solutions or transactions that will pay for coffee. I agree, the ecosystem, I wouldn't say Bitcoin, because I see Bitcoin as a part of a multi-layered system where each layer has a very specific role, and in my point of view, what Bitcoin is the censorship resistant currency that fuels the rest of the system. Because in order to create any open economic internet of value, I call it internet of value system, a transfer of value system that is open, that is interoperable and everything, the basic of that is having an intrinsic currency or a native currency that will fuel all that system. You cannot create the incentive model. So, and it's very interesting. So I think at the end, what Jihan wants is the same thing that everybody else wants. Maybe he is wrong or in some strategies, or might be wrong in some strategies, but his final goal is the same. And I think in this scaling debate, what I see more and more is that sometimes there's no good understanding of the problem at hand, or sometimes people is seeing only one part and they are not seeing the other part. And most of this confrontation was because everybody was starting to be very opinionated, instead of trying to listen to the other and learn from the other and try to find what I call the absolute truth. that of course none of us can reach, because the absolute truth is we only see a little bit of it. But if we manage to change this confrontational model into a model where we really listen and try to understand what the other person is viewing, then we can find the solutions. Of course, I'm completely biased, because I think the solution is creating layers on top of Bitcoin, because RSK is that. RSK is a business logic layer on top of Bitcoin.
Exactly, absolutely. RSK is one of the layers, and I agree. I think we need all sorts of multiple layers. But let's go with Andrew DeSantis. So Andrew, so what do you think, man? This you started this conversation. Well, you actually didn't start it, but I guess you definitely contributed to it. And this story was brought up on multiple news sites and things like that, and so it spurred all sorts of discussion on Reddit and comments and stuff. And so, I want to know, like what do you think that that you do see game theory here at work, and do you finally accept Segwit, or what is this? Break it down for us from your point of view.
So transaction malleability is not fixed on Bitcoin, but one second. Like I said earlier, dude, I'm not really that worried. It's like one of the, just like real quick, just to like provide context. Whenever I built the relaunch of Bitcoin Magazine, Socket.io, this WebSockets like proxy standard, what it did is you would write Socket.io, and then Socket.io would either convert itself to a WebSocket, or it would use like Flash or whatever other protocol is available. So it was a way to connect users to you in real time. And so I wanted to get the prices of all the exchanges onto my page. But I didn't actually want to run JavaScript, but I did want to do the WebSockets. One of the things that I wrote was a proxy that would hit 7 different exchanges in real time and then route it through one socket onto every single page, instead of calling all 7 exchanges in JavaScript on the page. And that was freaking ridiculously fun, lining up streams to each other in real time. So one of the things that I'm excited about with Litecoin adopting Lightning Network is I can have my cake and eat it too, basically, because I can open up a bidirectional payment channel over Bitcoin, and I can write code that's partially centralized for now, just for the purposes of testing, and I can have actions that take place over the Bitcoin blockchain and in payment channels opened on the Bitcoin blockchain have an effect on the Litecoin Lightning Network. So I get to build out all the stuff that I was going to build out with Lightning Network over something, and it exists. So I'm not particularly worried, because either those things will be valuable and it'll result in users demanding it, and the demand from users will increase the value of the underlying protocol that's providing service to whatever's built atop it, and the markets will react, or they won't. So things are working out pretty good. I'm not really worried about it.
Awesome. All right, so we'll go with Michael next on this. What do you think about that conversation? And is this maybe a sign that Jihan might activate Segwit? Oh, you're still muted.
I have a double mute.
The best of us.
Too. Yeah. So if it's true that Jihan Wu really or Bitmain in general didn't support Segwit because they had a advantage on mining, I don't know what automatically makes them want to say that we'll support Segwit or whatever, unless this is just to placate people into so he can make a little bit more money on the side before people get really, really mad. So I think he's gonna do what everyone else would in his position. He's gonna make as much money as possible. So I think I kind of agree with Diego. Because Diego kind of said his final thing is gonna be not to do anything bad. So I think he's just gonna be a capitalist as far as this is concerned. Destroy Bitcoin's value. And then also like what Andrew had. Litecoin right now is doing some exciting things with Segwit, and Charlie Lee's helping pump that along, I feel like, on Twitter. So it's fun to see him. And I'm really looking forward. I think the killer use case that people talk about for blockchains is remittances, and I think those remittance use cases are really going to be enabled through people like Andrew, I guess, that are developing Lightning Network stuff. So I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's just a lot of developers.
To be clear, I'm not developing LN. I'm using LN once it's developed. I'm developing something else, but that is all those guys. They're really smart fellows. Like, that's not me though.
Still, perfect example. Like, this is the tools that developers are going to take advantage of, right? The Lightning Network tool that developers like Andrew and many other developers can take advantage of to create systems and things and applications that we couldn't even fathom just a couple of years ago. So very, very interesting stuff. We'll go with who we going with next? We'll go with Edward next on this. Edward, Renegade Investor, give us your thoughts on this conversation, and Jihan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's always good to have like an open channel with Jihan. Like, I think things can get a bit over aggressive sometimes in the crypto world, where, to be honest, Jihan's only sort of accountable to Bitmain and the company and maximizing the profits for it. When it all boils down to everything, that's his sort of sole purpose, which is what it's like in a capitalist system, But one thing I will say is that, what he says on Twitter isn't necessarily what they're talking about in the corporate room down at Bitmain there. Like, he could be saying anything on Twitter. It could be a way to maybe deflect sort of a lot of unwanted attention and stuff like that, or increase their sort of PR. I'm really not sure, So one thing I'll say is that at the end of the day, he's accountable to Bitmain. He's there to maximize profits for them. The other thing I would say is my only problem with it is the fact that someone made a really good point the other day. I think it was Adam Back saying, there's hundreds of people working on the Bitcoin network. And if you have all that work on the network being held up by a few people, then it kind of does raise a lot of sort of moral and ethical sort of points of, whether that's really fair that there's hundreds of people spending years of their life putting work in to try and maximize the utility of the network, to make it scale, to bring in sort of utility that will allow it to bring utility to thousands more people in the future, so that we don't have high market fees, so we could do microtransactions and open it up to all parts of the world and all different use cases. So that's one of the sort of issues I have with it, which is why I think obviously a lot of people have been focusing on user activated soft fork as a sort of like, last sort of ditch effort to maybe, if this never gets resolved, to resolve it. But the one reason why I think this he still sort of hasn't signaled for Segwit is the fact that, like I said, the miners are making a lot of money from having this contention between the implementations, because obviously their fees have gone from $85 per block up to $1,200 sort of dollars per block per what they're mining every 10 minutes. So that's obviously a colossal increase. That's like a 10 times increase. And I think the reason as well this hasn't been resolved is the fact that one of the things I always look at on my channel is the Metcalfe value of the network, which is, I think it was Plague Dr. Zero, a guy on Reddit, did a chart which showed the Metcalfe value of the Bitcoin network. And even with a 1 megabyte block, the Metcalfe value of the network at 300,000 transactions, where it's sort of maxing out at, it can support a price up to like $4,000 or $5,000, like before it really cannot go any further. But even then it could. But that's a sort of, if it got to 4,000 or 5,000, that would be where you would expect it to be with a 300,000 transaction block. And I think that's why we are still trading at a discount to the Metcalfe value of the network. And that's because I think 2014 Mt. Gox was such a bad event that we've been trading at a discount to that since then. And I think, maybe once we get to that sort of 4,000 or 5,000 mark, and if we still haven't got a solution to scaling and the price really will not go up and starts to drop at that point, then maybe then these actors will be forced to adopt Segwit if that is the most popular implementation at the time. But to be honest, we don't even know what's going to happen now. Like, if Segwit doesn't get activated, what other sort of free market solutions are going to come up to try and resolve these issues? But in regards to Jihan, like, I wouldn't put a lot of weight into what he says on Twitter, because it's probably quite different to what he's talking about sort of behind the scenes at his company. So that's my thoughts on it.
Very interesting. I think Andrew had something to go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think because of how easy Bitcoin makes making money by doing things just in general, I don't think people really appreciate how hard it used to be to be able to just write the code that you wanted to write as your job. or just in general. Like I knew nobody when I was in college whose plan was to just write whatever the hell they want. They all went and worked at like insurance companies or something like that. So like the whole Bitcoin deal, like multiple companies of a bunch of sovereign individuals like trying to debate how to get a protocol to work. It's a privilege within itself to even be able to get to write your own code every single day. So I think people, I think, feel entitled to the ability to change Bitcoin or something like that whenever it's actually really, really hard to change anything that's actually worth using. And I just think that like kind of goes by, like in general. I mean, it's.
Yeah. I think that most people don't realize that. I mean, just the fact that Bitcoin is so hard to change is the feature, people. It is the main feature, and that's what really gets by a lot of people. But I think that the market cap is is definitely, the price is definitely showing that the market is starting to understand. I think that was the last topic, unless anybody else had anything else to add on this topic.
I didn't talk about the Jihan thing.
Oh, Ansel, sorry. Oh, Ansel. Please,
Yeah.
we have one more commenter left. Ansel, BitcoinMarkets.com. Ansel, please tell us what do you think?
I don't have too much to add, but it is a change in tune from Jihan, and like Edward was saying, wouldn't put too much stock in what he says on Twitter, and we don't know. I mean, he has lied so many times about so many different things that we don't know if he really means them. But it's definitely a change in tune, and I thought it was notable. I thought Andrew did a good job kind of being very diplomatic and pulling some information from him. So I thought that was good. I think there was a misunderstanding that's getting cleared up by Bitmain and maybe Jihan, that they thought that if Segwit was adopted or activated, that there would be no ASIC boost. And so it's starting to become more well known that, you just produce a block that's not a Segwit block, and you can still use ASIC boost even with Segwit activated. If I'm wrong, somebody can clarify that. But
I like ASIC boost. I want to make an ASIC boost. Tell the guy that made ASIC boost, I said, good job. Like, it made me think of things a little bit differently. That's a pretty cool move. Like, I have nothing against ASIC boost. If it was blocking a bug, that'd be one thing, but Litecoin has it now, so it's.
Well, it's been speculated, of course, that covert ASIC boost is the reason for stalling Segwit. But in that respect, of course, we probably don't like.
It'll be added in one generation to Bitfury's chips. I mean, dude, these guys like build aircraft carrier container pods with 3M special liquid stuff to run machines that hash random crap all day. Like, they'll add ASIC boost. So I mean, that's one generation away from being added in. I'm not particularly worried about that. That was a really cool thing to figure out. Like, that's a whole side of Bitcoin we haven't even been looking at, because we would have found ASIC boost when we were looking at it. So I don't have a problem with ASIC boost. What I have a problem with is lying about why you're doing this, so that the developers go and waste 2 years on a roadmap that they're trying to go down. Friendships and all sorts of stuff get ruined over this, and I think that was pretty bad. Now, should he go to jail, or should Bitmain have legal action? No, obviously they shouldn't, but I think everybody should know what kind of characters they are. Well, I mean, like, I didn't go.
I don't think it's that clear. Yeah, I don't think it goes that way, because in Hong Kong everybody was willing to again, I think it's a problem of miscommunication. Then it became a war and a fight, but everybody in Hong Kong was ready to implement Segwit, but they wanted 2 megabytes as well, and that requires a hard fork, and that's another topic. Like, hard forks require a lot of work before we can do them in a safe way. But for now, it's like, so I think there was a lot of come and goes. I wouldn't say there was like this Machiavellic plan to stop Segwit. I think it was like mostly the miners were trusting core developers blindly, and then there were certain things that triggered some alarms, and that made them start to look into technical aspects. For that, it was like, let's do whatever the core. I mean, so I think it was more a miscommunication problem, because I mean, the 2 megabytes on Segwit was an agreement. Everybody was on board. They were going to do it. And I'm in China now. I've been meeting with every pool. And what I mean is every pool is every pool.
Mm-hmm.
Two sides of the scaling debate. So
well, yeah, we don't want to go. Go ahead.
Dude,
Yes.
It's been a terrible miscommunication. Like before Segwit was presented, by the way, I actually wanted bigger blocks. And then Segwit was presented, and I was like, oh, we got bigger blocks. And then 2 years went by, and I read a bunch of books. And I read, and I read, and I read, and I read, and I went, okay, well, shit, from an information perspective, small blocks make sense because the speed of light thing's not going anywhere. And I started looking at it from a different angle. So Segwit has been the worst communicated thing like pretty much ever because of the fact that it actually does increase the block size, but it does not increase the block size variable. So what it does is if you actually keep the variable at 1 megabyte, it actually stores 4 megabytes worth of stuff. And that's very hard to communicate whenever people don't understand why that number doesn't change. And that has to do with the soft fork nature of it. So I get why the core side is really proud of that. They figured out how to not break Bitcoin, but actually increase the capacity. And they feel like they delivered on what they were, tasked to deliver. On the other side of it, I can see why miners might think we were going to have this configuration variable and we were going to be able to measure returns based on, what the values of, what the spec of Bitcoin was. And if just that miscommunication alone also has a language barrier and a 12-hour, like people are asleep while other people are awake deal, and there's a freaking market based around it, like it's going to end up being really bad.
I mean, this is why it takes so long. This is part of the reason why it takes so long. There is so much at stake. There is so much barrier to entry in the communication. There's so much, interference with the communication. But, even in a world where we can communicate in real time, like via Twitter and things like that, there's, like Andrew mentioned, there's still barriers. And so, but the incentives are there. And I think also, like Andrew said, the game theory and the mechanics make it so that if you project out, the odds are that everything will work itself out. Like it sounds all like a fairy tale, like, oh, everything will be fine. But like when you look at the game theory, the mechanics and the economics and the incentives, that the odds of everything being okay is really, really good.
Well, if we forked, I have like 3 backups right here. I can just boot it back up and we can sync up and we'll be good. We'll just go back to the IRC channel like it started out at. Like that's the worst case scenario for Bitcoin. If we screw it up, worst case, we have to deal with some journalists for a couple weeks or years or whatever. But I got 3 copies of the blockchain on me right now. Timestamp dated. They're good as of today. Like I pop it in, we got a fresh Bitcoin.
All right.
I'm really just like not that worried.
Can I jump in, folks?
I have mine as well. So we are good. We have 4 copies already.
Yep. We can compare hashes and make sure that we both have the same blockchain, and then all of a sudden, like it might be currency. That'd be crazy.
So there you go. People are like, "What about electricity? What about Obviously, we have worse things to worry about if electricity goes out. But that
Bitcoin doesn't actually happen every 10 minutes. Sometimes it's instantly. Sometimes it's 50 minutes. Maybe it goes down for an hour.
But I got 4 people right here on the chat, all who have a copy of the blockchain.
I got 3 copies.
3 copies. So Bitcoin's not going anywhere, people. Okay.
One thing I love, right? Like, just don't underestimate the free market. The free market is like the most powerful thing in the world. Even if Segwit isn't activated, we don't know what is going to come in its place. And do you know what? Stefan Molyneux, like philosopher I listen to, he's absolutely brilliant. Everyone should listen to him. He's got one of my favorite quotes on the free market, which I think really sums it up. And he said, like, when they banned slavery, they were like, who's going to pick the crops and all this sort of thing. And if you said to someone, well, if we get rid of that, you're going to have a mechanical machine that runs on liquidated plankton that can harvest a field in like 10 minutes. They would have like burnt you at the stake or whatever and gone, you're freaking insane. But that's the thing. We don't know what the free market is going to do until we get into that situation. Like, if Segwit doesn't activate, we don't know what is going to come along, who's out there working on a project they might have been working on for the last 2 years, and they're going to announce it. Like, we have no idea. So that's why, even though I'm actually getting quite comfortable with the status quo now, like it's not a concern of mine that we haven't scaled. I mean, the fees will probably maybe become an issue in the future, but we just don't know yet what the free market is going to deliver here. And it could be something that's incredible that no one's even thought of yet. So that's something to like think about as well.
Yep. And, you know,
Bitcoin's weird.
Well, yeah, Bitcoin is weird, but Bitcoin is a response, right? Bitcoin is the free market response to the craziness that we've had for the past couple thousand years. So that's one thing the free market has given us already, right? And then beyond that, we have all sorts of awesome things that organically pop up in Bitcoin. Like, well, this is just the beginning. So when, you know, this is what happens when you have a borderless, censorship resistant, open system. Everybody can participate, and the things that can come will blow everybody away. So Andrew,
I got a simple proposal, because I'm gonna get this, like, I might tattoo it on my wrist like this week, because it's so freaking useful. Because I'm dealing with people all over the world, like this whole like time zone and daylight saving times crap is just, it's no good. So what I'm going to do is take the Unix timestamp from when Bitcoin was created, subtract it from the current Unix timestamp, and then label all my stuff with the resulting integer. Just start counting time from when Bitcoin started to exist, because then I can start pairing all the stuff I do to block height. And so on a piece of paper, I can take the offset and I take the block height and I can infer a bunch of stuff like, you know, it's been this long since stuff stopped being bullshit. And I can work from that. So if I'm going to wear my watch on my left hand, I figure I may as well have the Unix time offset there. And that's an extremely useful app for me. I know that sounds funny, but like that, I don't need an iPhone app to manage Bitcoin time. I just need the Bitcoin Unix time offset on me forever, and I'm good to go. That's what I think of when I think of an app for Bitcoin, to be clear.
Yeah, and that's just absolutely. That's just another thing, like being able to literally base our society's time off of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the only thing that we can actually trust in society.
It's a reboot of the cultural operating system, and that's why I say we got to start over at the BIOS, because that's where Bitcoin's at right now. If we can get Bitcoin to secure our BIOS, then we can build every single other aspect of what we do digitally and what we do, you know, analog on paper and whatnot. We can do it around Bitcoin, because we can just use pointers that map each system to each other. And it's going to be crazy, because
it's going to be crazy, dude. It's going to be crazy. I don't want to go on too long, but it's going to be crazy. Does anybody else have anything else to add on here before we go into the second half? Nope. Okay, so all right. Well, that's been some great topics, ladies and gentlemen. We have 30 minutes left, so I guess it's a little bit less than a half. But I'd like to you know, at least just ask our special guest Diego here a couple of questions. The rest of the panelists, if you guys want to leave, you can go ahead. We're gonna unless you want to stay, you can more than welcome to stay. You can ask Diego a question if you'd like. But I got a couple questions I wanna ask him. So we have 224 people in the chat viewing us right now. So thanks so much to everybody for that. Thanks so much to everybody in the chat. We have great conversations going on right now. So please hit the subscribe button to the World Crypto Network. We have more and more views every day. We have more and more people talking about Bitcoin every day. So that is definitely exciting. Very happy about that. So let's go ahead and go into the second part of the show here, where we're going to talk with Diego a little bit about his company, RSK. And so I have a couple of questions here that I have. I'll ask just one, and then if anybody else has a question, you can let me know, and we'll see if we can ask them. So first is just in general, Diego. You know, what RSK was created to make smart contracts, right? Like more accessible to Bitcoin. So has RSK done this so far? And you know, can this be done only with RSK, this types of smart contract stuff, or is this can be done with the regular Bitcoin blockchain as well?
Well, what RSK did is create a sidechain to Bitcoin that processes smart contracts with the same capabilities as Ethereum. So basically what you can do is you can port any smart contract from Ethereum and make it run in RSK. But in the case of RSK, secured by the Bitcoin network. We took the decision of using the strongest, the safest network in the world and putting it to a second purpose, that is securing a secondary blockchain, smart contracts. And the other strategic decision we took was instead of creating a new speculative token, what we did is we created a two-way peg with Bitcoin. So within RSK, what you used to pay for smart contract execution is what we call smart bitcoins. In Chinese, is Chenan PTP.
I haven't heard B2B in a long time.
So the idea is that in that way, we are fully aligned with the Bitcoin ecosystem. What we are doing is leveraging all the value built. I'm a long-time Bitcoiner. I started like actively devoting my life to Bitcoin in 2012. I got in touch with it in 2011. I created, together with my partners, the Bitcoin Argentina community, and helped create another 8 in America. So I've seen all the value that was put in Bitcoin, and I thought, we need to leverage. I think smart contracts have its particular use cases, and also, RSK has a protocol, a consensus protocol that issues validations every 12 seconds. It can reach 100 transactions per second. And that fact makes the transactional cost very low. So 1 cent transactions, 1 cent USD transfers. So I think RSK solves, it does that by leveraging on Bitcoin infrastructure and leveraging on Bitcoin adoption and liquidity, because by having a currency that already has a lot of liquidity, you solve a lot of problems. Anybody that wants to run a smart contract in RSK can go to any exchange in the world, buy Bitcoin, and send it to the two-way peg of RSK, and they will get Bitcoin. So that's basically the concept. Is basically leveraging on the Bitcoin infrastructure, on the Bitcoin community, all the services built on Bitcoin, and also leveraging on the Ethereum developer community. We think is very valuable as well. So it's basically both the best of both worlds, in my point of view.
So are you staying in sync whenever they update their language? Are you updating your language? And then what about the miner reward? I know Vlad's doing this kind of push to fix something, but I haven't had time to really look into it yet. Are you guys staying in parity with them, or did you guys fork and start?
Yes, we need to follow up Ethereum in some things, and even in some things that we don't agree are the best approach to do, because compatibility in our view is better than demonstrating our capabilities. In other things, we have departure completely. But in the language level, we always follow any development in Solidity close, so we make sure that applications will run the same on both networks. On the consensus protocol, the design is our own. Okay. It has a smooth income smoothing that reduces fish mining to zero, because when you get paid from previous blocks, and you contribute to following blocks. So it makes selfish mining almost impossible. So
okay.
So that's important.
So one of the things I guess that I always notice when I start using a language or start working as a platform is what the purpose of the language was for, how it was designed. So with Python, we have an object-oriented language that kind of works like duct tape, and with C, it's more procedural. So with Ethereum's contract language, if we weren't calling it a contract language and we were able to run through the regression tests and actually watch contracts play themselves out, what paradigm would you say that it resembles the most? Is it more like a JavaScript virtual machine in your opinion, or I guess you have the experience of building it from the bottom up instead of seeing it from the top down?
Yes, it's a bunch of opcodes at the end. It's very like JavaScript like language. We are not tied to Solidity alone, because in the future what we think we offer is a smart contract execution infrastructure. So we will add different runtime environments where you can add even more restrictive languages that are not fully Turing complete, but that are more
targeted for that someday.
Yes, to specific domains.
That'll be cool.
So, So in the future, even, I don't know, digital assets has this language called DAML. We might implement, we'll have like an intermediate layer on the VM in Java. So we will do conversions of different languages to that and do optimizations.
So this is why any sidechain, by the way, is valuable. It's not the chain and the authority that they have over it or any project like this. It's the actual knowledge of how to modify the virtual machine they've built. Because while it maps to Ethereum, the value is that they can map any language to that back end and swap any front end they want out. So it's that's the valuable part.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
That's the approach.
Very interesting. So let me ask you then, what makes RSK like better or different than Ethereum?
Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would say that's a short answer. I would say, RSK will be secured by the safest, the biggest network in terms of infrastructure. And if you have $1 billion in hardware, you are, and then in Ethereum maybe you have your 300 million in hardware. So that alone makes the network 3 times more secure. But also when you do those comparisons about investment in the network, there's another factor that is Ethereum hardware can be repurposed. Bitcoin hardware cannot be repurposed. So I think in terms of security, it's much more than 3 times. You cannot compare net value of one network to the other. Because miners in Bitcoin, if Bitcoin goes wrong, they have a lot of crap metal. It's not that they can do anything else with that hardware. So the lock-in is stronger in Bitcoin than Ethereum. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, as we are kind of subsidized by Bitcoin, because miners are already making a living of processing and creating new Bitcoins, we can always be the less expensive smart contract platform out there. So if you combine that, and you have the safest and the cheapest network in smart contracts, that give you a very relevant position, not dominant position, but a very relevant position. And also we are adding a third element to the mix, that is security on the software. Sergio is a security expert. He was a part of the Bitcoin core. He made very many contributions to Bitcoin security, like the quadratic bug was actually found by him. So he's very security oriented. Our chief security officer has also participated in Ethereum audits in Zcash. So he's a top-notch security advisor. So we plan to make our time in software. It's not that the software we will release in May, in 15 days, would be bulletproof, but is there. I mean, our direction is to make this very hard to hack and to.
Y'all are going to be really cool to use with WebAssembly. Is what I keep thinking.
Yes, we analyze WebAssembly. We think we prefer. We are a little bit conservative. We are waiting until WebAssembly settles. Before
I've been playing with it since 2013.
But we like it very much.
Yeah, it's like freaking awesome. It's gonna change everything. Like,
yes,
it's gonna change everything so fast that people are gonna be so blind to it, and they're not even gonna know it's coming. And you guys are basically building like that biggest killer app. So that's pretty cool.
Very interesting. I think Michael had a question. Go ahead, Michael.
And I gotta check out that WebAssembly stuff after this. That's cool.
Now I'm curious about it as a web developer.
Oh, we're coming in, and you don't even. We're bringing everything. It's gonna be crazy. You have no idea what we're about to do.
I feel like this is gonna turn out to me jumping into another rabbit hole, looking up that kind of stuff. But I have a question for Diego. So my feeling on sidechains was I was just going to really let them be implemented and then really research the crap out of them. But let me just ask you a couple questions. How Rootstock as a company, how are y'all going to make money?
Oh, our business model is very straightforward. We receive 20% of all the transactional fees that are produced. So we are basically partners with the miners.
You could have gotten 30, I think. Are you giving the miners 10 and it's taken 30 from the dev because that's what we're used to because of Apple? Okay, no, like that makes
Well,
sense. Apple takes 30%, so like that's a market value of what devs are willing to give up.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it might get. I mean, I think that would be a negotiation at the end. Is like, you know, if people think that we do a good contribution, they will respect our percentage. If they think, you know, contribution is not fair enough, maybe they will negotiate with us and tell us, you know what.
I would do 30% if you guys did a LTS of the protocol, and then all new stuff was like we do with operating systems, because I don't necessarily want to have changes to contract protocol forced on me immediately. I'd like to know that I can, you know, do this for 2 years or something like that, and then pop back in and update later.
Well, the governance model of RSK, we already have something in mind that will be deployed in 2018. So in 2018, we also are going to our God mode and start, you know, being run by the governance model. So that's why I'm saying it will be a negotiation among the stakeholders of the ecosystem.
Makes sense.
But I agree there. I like what you're saying. I think there's a lot of research to be done on hard fork activation and on how to represent the stakeholders of a crypto ecosystem that has medium to long-term engagement, like miners, companies building solutions, what some people call the economic nodes, no, the ones originating the transactions, the actual users of the network. So we
oh, my bad. I used to call the economic nodes, real quick, I used to call them archive nodes. I always imagined that we would end up calling them archive nodes, because I see them as just these like giant hard drive warehouses that have to not go offline. And all I see them as is just wasted space. I mean, full nodes do what they do, and they could be building on protocol instead of, they could be doing what you're doing instead of camping out and centralizing that part. And
I think Michael had another question.
Yes, sorry.
Oh no, yeah, y'all are good. Keep the conversation.
Oh, sorry.
Going, but,
okay, cool.
I mean, yeah, I have more questions.
Conversation.
Another one. So Diego, you mentioned that Rootstock is taking like a 20% cut on transactions that, let's be clear, they're using that two-way peg that Rootstock is providing, right?
Yes, the two-way peg, how it goes is to create an actual, the proposal from Blockstream of a two-way peg requires that both platforms, both networks understand the blockchain of the other. That's why the sidechain was attacked so much. You know, it's like, well, then you need that, you know, in a way you need that the incomplete and add a lot of things so Bitcoin could understand the data structure of RSK. You know, so given that that's very difficult, but we were thinking in alternatives to that. So basically, when you move money from Bitcoin, or you lock money in Bitcoin and you create representations of that money in RSK, RSK has the capability of understanding what's going on in Bitcoin. So in that side, you don't need to resort to any third party. Minimize, as Nick Sabo would like to say it, is a trust minimized transfer of value between those two blockchains. But when you go back to Bitcoin, you have a problem because Bitcoin doesn't understand what's going on the RSK side. So for that part, we have a process of multiple stage where the first stage will be based on a federation, which is comprised of the top exchanges, Bitcoin exchanges and wallets in the world, that they will hold a multi-signature wallet, and they will be in charge of releasing the funds, which we know is not a best solution, is not the ultimate solution, because it
Blockstream did it. Blockstream did it with Liquid.
Yeah, it is the model of Liquid, but we know that in the long run you don't want to have a point where of parties that can be identified and can be extorted to do a certain thing. I always say, if you don't want to be extorted, better don't have the power in the first place.
As a developer, I do not want to have to manage any side chains I build. But as a user, I do not mind that well-funded companies have their reputations on the line with these multi-sig wallets. To be like, that's just my personal opinion. I want it to be sure.
I agree. Yeah, and you can create models of incentive like Cosmos does. You can create like leave collaterals from the parties involved in the peg, so they have economic value at stake in case something goes wrong, so they stay honest. So there are models where you can improve that part. But the interesting thing is that for stage 2, we already created a BIP that is called DriveChain, and we already created the software.
So you're doing this with Paul?
Well, we were discussing ideas with Paul from the very beginning, and we agree in most of it, but we were with certain difference in the implementation side. That's why we created our own version of DriveChain. Sergio had some ideas, but I think eventually we will converge because at the end the concept is very similar. So DriveChain enables the miners that are basically merge mining both networks to sign the release of funds on the primary network. So with that in place, then we will have a fully trust minimized two-way peg between Bitcoin and RSK, say the first production sidechain.
So we actually, drive chains are such a good base model for how the first side chains are going to look. Drive chains are that I already know of like 3 other forked ideas off of it, including my own, which involves applying drive chains to other blockchains and then merging them into a single multi-chain single coin abstraction. It's going to get weird, and Paul and whoever he has coding with him, if you look at those ICOs and you see what the supposed valuations are, if that gives us any bit of an idea of what the pulse on the market is for what Paul's doing, Paul's going to be a very rich man. Like, that's all I'm going to say, because he is already touched on a bunch of that stuff, and drive chains is going to be how you see side chains at first, and Litecoin will be how you see LN at first, and it's going to be interesting.
Well, we are also talking with the devs of Litecoin since last year to do a two-way peg. But they didn't want to activate Segwit before Bitcoin back then. They were more conservative. But now that they have activated Segwit, our VIP is on parts of Segwit. So you can actually implement drive chain right away in Litecoin. So that with them, and they are very positive about doing it because they wanted to do it last year because that adds smart contract capabilities for Litecoin. So they wanted to do it, but they were worried about moving faster than Bitcoin. So now that they did, they took the jump. I don't see why.
It's not bad for Bitcoin. To be clear, Litecoin, because of its 2.5-minute block time and how large its blocks are, it cannot propagate as fast as Bitcoin can, and that's an issue in that the average time between blocks and the size of the block, if it takes longer to send you the transmission for all of the transactions included in a block than the actual block times average is supposed to be itself, that's an issue. So for Litecoin to actually even scale to be a silver to Bitcoin's gold in any way, not saying that that's like the metaphor I'm trying to box it in, just that's what it used to be called. For that to even work, Litecoin actually needs LN to do eCash payment channel stuff because it can't reach Bitcoin's level.
Yes.
I mean, there is no altcoin that can reach. There is no altcoin that can reach like global perfect levels of like instant transaction, and certainly not.
If they altered their production times, they could do it to fit with the fact that propagation times deal with the speed of light and stuff like that. But for them to have LN, it could not have been a more perfect situation. People do not realize how big a deal it is that we have the ability to use LN, and it's one of the top 5 that people are already accustomed and kind of used to. It would be very confusing if Lightning Coin came out and it was like something people had to use because this is where the research was.
Now it's activated on Litecoin and Vertcoin, right? So 2 other coins we can actually start testing this stuff with. And finally to the biggest network on the planet.
It's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, I think in my point of view, we need 3 layers. We need the currency, we need the business logic, and then we need off-chain payments to really scale to Visa, like Alipay. Like everybody mentions Visa, but Visa is only maybe 3,000 transactions per second. Alipay is handling 85,000 transactions per second.
They're ridiculous because they have no fees.
Yeah,
I don't know why they don't have fees, but they have 0 fees.
I think Michael, you had something. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we end, I wanted to get this question in because I just thought about it. Ethereum, they're saying they're going to move to proof of stake, whatever. I typically think of sidechains as merge mining ideas. How would this work with? Okay, let's say I did, not to say I want to personally, but let's say I want to make a sidechain using POS as my consensus algorithm. Is that possible with
you can make one
RSK?
You can make one right now. Just write it on a piece of paper.
Yeah, yes. I mean, you can create a POS cryptocurrency, and the thing is, if it's POS, you will secure, because in our case, we are leveraging the fact that we are a merge mine sidechain to release in the second stage of the two-way peg to release the funds using the same miners that are merge mining on both sides to release the funds. So if you are a POS only, same problem we were discussing before is how Bitcoin understands your data structure, your blockchain, to understand that funds need to be released on Bitcoin. So that was the problem with sidechains. I mean, unless you have an SPV, for example, an SPV opcode where you can check on a secondary blockchain from Bitcoin that something happened on some Bitcoin, then you cannot fully automate it. So that's the biggest challenge. And I think eventually we will see some, I mean, these ways we are like testing new things. But I think once most of the big crypto platforms stabilize and mature, the next challenge for us will be how we interconnect them, how we create bridges between all these ecosystems. Because if you have good bridges between these ecosystems, then the whole thing is unstoppable. Because then it really, if you can kill one, but then you have 10 more going on. So that's in my vision, we will have like blockchains of blockchains, and all the research we can do in that area will be very, very valuable.
Well, like in cellular communication, that's like one word I can't say at all. We have CDMA, TDMA, FDMA, which is sequence, channel division, frequency division, time division, and this is for messaging. So in Bitcoin, I think what you're going to see is that proof of work systems are going to look more like CDMA versus GSM, like in the United States, where you go get a cell phone and you have a number. But if you're on T-Mobile, you need a SIM card to do voice. And if you're on Verizon, you have the actual chip from Qualcomm. It's built to use CDMA. And what's really interesting, and like one thing I think is worth noting here, is like the recent ransomware attacks that use the SIM swap vulnerability. That only exists because of bugs in the interoperability of CDMA and GSM. So whenever you're doing code to interop two different blockchains at the same time, that is like nuclear physics, like rocket science hard, because I mean, this happens all the time. Major, major, major flaws in these protocols result in major losses. But whenever it works, it looks like your phone. Just pull your phone out and make a call.
Diego, real quick. So like, let's say we're using the Lightning Network and we're using RSK over the top of Lightning Network. Do you still have to pay the 20% RSK fee, or to use RSK assets?
How it works is any Lightning channel requires that you open the channel and you close the channel. So you need at least 2 on-chain transactions. So for those 2 on-chain transactions, you will pay the 20%. You don't pay it actually, because it's something that is split between them. That's a problem between the miners and ourselves. I've been a lot of people saying, oh, because you increase the price 20%. I mean, it's the negotiation that goes behind curtains. But for a Lightning channel, you have two on blockchain transactions, and you will pay the RSK fee only for those 2. while all the transactions in between or all the intermediate don't pay a fee for that. So
awesome. So you're paying you guys the fee won't interfere with the math we do within your system. So that'd be really irritating if I was losing them. Okay, that's good.
Yes.
That's
Very
actually
cool,
like a
very
really good deal.
Mhm.
It
So-
could be really irritating.
So before we end it, let me just.
Yeah.
Sorry, Diego. Before we end it, let me just ask you: when can we expect RSK to be on mainnet? When is this coming out live? Because I know that you're on testnet right now.
We are on testnet. We already have one operation doing full merge mining of the mainnet of Bitcoin and RSK. So if you go to blockchain explorer in Bitcoin, you will see some RSK blocks, some blocks tag as RSK. And you know that operation has been doing full merge mining for 5 months. Is Bitcoin India, so we can say it's pretty stable. So now we are starting to add more and more pools. We didn't want to multiply the learning process for everybody. So what we did is we made it right with one, and in parallel we implemented in multiple pools, software pools. We have implemented almost in every pool, software pool there is, like CK pool, Alloy pool, Stratum, a myriad of softwares out there. So we are in testnet. The thing is, the next step for us was releasing the code and opening the testnet to the world, because the testnet was closed. So you had to ask for permission to access it. So in May, at Consensus on May 22nd, we will release the code. We will make it open source, and also open the testnet to the world. And then a process will start, a hardening process will start, where what we will do is basically receive feedback from the community, because we think there's a lot of smart people out there. So we want to profit from that. Increasing the hash rate over 50% of the hashing power of Bitcoin, but we don't have a fixed number there. But we will go increasing the hashing power, and in parallel create a bounty program, a security bounty program on the two-way peg. You know, we want to be hacked as much as possible. So the idea is that once the bounty program is finished and we reach certain level of hashing power, we will kick in ProdNet right away. So it's part of a process more than a fixed date. I would say that process, I think it might take maybe 3-4 months to get there. But
that's what I think an ICO should look like, by the way, is whenever you go 100% merge mine, like when you hit 100% of the hashing power, if you can reach it, that's when you've gone 100% public, because it's now, you know, the will of the people on how this thing works.
Well, that's our approach. It's like, instead of fixing a date, it's like when the conditions are proper to go in production, we will do it. We don't need to rush it. I mean, this is a lifelong addition to Bitcoin, so we have to make it right, not make it fast.
I mean, and
That's
all
awesome.
the ICO stuff happening over Ethereum, by the way, will then re-happen over this, and it's going to be a nightmare for the people.
It's such a contrast, you know, you guys with your RSK development, you know, compared to things like Ethereum and compared to the coins and ICOs on top of Ethereum. Very stark contrast, you know, and I say this all the time. I mean, what I care about is science, right? I care about science. I don't really care about all of these features and all these great, you know, Bitcoin is, to me, is pure science. It's where the censorship resistant, you know, transaction payment network, money outside the state, like that is the killer app. And so to see it develop it like it is perfect. I don't want 10 million features on there. I don't want a version 2.0 every single freaking update. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of the freaking updates on my iPad and my iPhone every damn minute telling me to update. No, I want Bitcoin to work.
It's
in our case, our purpose as a company is highly attached to enabling financial inclusion. We have 250 million people outside the financial system without access, because, you know, I wouldn't say outside, without access to the very basic financial services in Latin America, and 2 billion in the world. And as I said, it's not that we want to, I don't call them unbanked, because I don't think the goal is to bank them. The goal is to give them the basics economically thrive. So with that in mind, for us, being censorship resistant, being safe is key, because we are going to hold the money of the poorest people in the world, and it won't be Bitcoin in the beginning. It will be maybe representations of the local currency. It will be crypto pesos, crypto USD, crypto, maybe even issued by central banks or private banks with custodial accounts. So it would be a different, but still that will create an effect of bringing millions of users into the Bitcoin platform, into the Bitcoin network, with which we can work afterwards. Because once they have the wallet, they have the technology. It's very easy to add just additional currency on the side with a B and 2 stripes, and people will wonder, what is this? Oh, and they will start seeing the evolution of price of that against their local currency. So that's a way to educate, to financial education to the people who need it the most. So that's why we are so conservative in many things.
Awesome.
None of
Very
these
awesome.
ideas, by the way, about contracts are new. Sasbo wrote the playbook for it a long time ago with the God Protocols paper and the whole breakdown of what a smart contract language would look like. So if they do it right first, it'll be the first realization of that idea. Just because you put marketing materials out there about it doesn't mean it's unstoppable.
Well,
So,
I'm excited. I'm excited about RSK. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see, our Ethereum go and RSK go, and I really think that it's really going to be bring even more information and more people into the crypto space. So this is great. So thanks, guys, so much for joining us. We had over 230 people at the height. Thank you so much to my panelists, to all the people in the chat, to all the people commenting. We had a great time. We went about 2 hours here, so it's just about right. Want to thank my panelists again so much. Let's say goodbye to them one by one. Edward, thank you so much, man. Renegade Investor, for joining us. Tell us, man, where can we find you?
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. It's a great show. And you can find me at renegadeinvestor.co.uk. That's my website. You can also find me at SharkyBit on Twitter. And I've also got a YouTube channel linked from my website as well. So that's Renegade Investor. So that's where I put all my content. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Michael Tidwell, where can we find you, please?
I'm Mike21 everywhere. So that's Mike20 spelled out with the 1. Also do the Block Time podcast, and some of that's on YouTube. You can search for Mike21 or SoundCloud, iTunes. Also, if you're in Atlanta, run the Tab meetup. So we're the Atlanta blockchain. We have like 100+ people come out to our events, and we provide food and beverage, and we're just about education and learning. Reach out. I've been driving out and flying out to a lot of conferences and meetups, giving talks about various blockchain topics. So.
Awesome, Michael. Thanks. That's awesome, man. Thanks so much again for joining, man, and thanks so much for doing those. I gotta join. I gotta see you one of these days, man. I gotta head up to Atlanta and check it out. Talk about Bitcoin and eat some food. You can't beat that, man. Good food, couple beers, and Bitcoin. All right, Andrew DeSantis, where can we find you, sir?
Twitter for now.
Yeah, we can
Twitter.
find you
at twitter.com/DeSantis for now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andy, for joining us, man. We love having you on the show and having your technical knowledge, your technical skill, and your technical mind break it down for us lowly folks over here. Diego, thanks so much, man, for being our special guest. Thanks so much for joining us, for giving us your time. I know it's like 3 a.m. where you are. You're always traveling, so we definitely we appreciate it so much, man. Where can we find out more about
5
you?
5 a.m.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Where can we find out?
That's good.
Diego.
I think the easiest way to reach me is by Twitter. It's Dieguito. It's like little Diego in Spanish. Guito. So that comes from my early days as a web pioneer. So I know little anymore.
All right, and then of course, the RSK project can be found at rsk.co. Encourage everybody to check that out. They've got stuff you can download to check out, to test, to demo. They got a video, of course, on there as well that explains kind of the high level. So recommend everybody check that out. Lots of amazing technologies being built around Bitcoin. The ecosystem is growing and the price is growing. So I'm really excited. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We had a great time. We're gonna be back again, of course, in 2 weeks, and with another episode. And thanks again so much for everybody for contacting me for a private consultation. I love having a one-on-one with you guys. If you guys want to do that, if you want to talk to me about Bitcoin or ask me questions, whatever you want to talk about crypto, please email me at bitcoinhelp@protonmail.com. And until next time, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, just keep on talking Bitcoin. See you guys later.